we're gonna take a look at the Canine cards, which is the last remaining archetype we need to look at from Justice Hunters. Next, these will release next to what are they called? The Yummies and the what was the other one? Dragon Tails. So Dragon Tails is the fusion archetype. Yummies are like, they have some synchros and links, and this one is supposed to be the XYZ archetype. So we're gonna take a look at that, and it looks like it is a rank 5 based theme, which we haven't had a rank 5 centered deck in a long time, if even ever. But okay, we have Canine number 17 Izuna, which is a level 5 Earth Warrior with 2100 attack, 1600 defense. You can only use the second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon this card without tributing. During the main phase, if your opponent activated a monster effect in the hand or graveyard this turn, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Ooh. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send a Canine card from your deck to the grave except Canine Izuna. Okay. A few things about this. I think that this first effect is cool to make a level 5 deck viable, because I think they all are level 5, or a lot of them are level 5. So giving you the ability, of course, to normal summon your level 5 monsters without tributing is pretty neat. On the other hand, this is something that in some grindier game states can be pretty frustrating, because if you're ever in a simplified game state against this deck, a lot of those draws are going to be terrible, right? Like if you draw into any of this when your opponent is low on cards, you're just not going to be able to play it, which can be awkward. But on the other hand, of course, this is like, you need to add an effect like this to your level 5 monsters, otherwise this deck is just going to be way too clunky, right? So the other part here that I wanted to mention is that this second effect is actually pretty cool, because it's like a Rescue Ace Impulse kind of effect that also works on the opponent's turn when you're going second. So depending on what kind of targets we have for it, which I don't know yet, but if there is a good Canine card in the graveyard effect, then this is a pretty neat like crossover between a starter potentially and a hand trap. So that is potentially pretty powerful. Next up, we have Canine number 66A Jökull, level 5 Dark Aqua. Okay, so there seems to be no real theme between their typings and attributes. Another level 5 monster, you can only use the second and third effect once per turn. If your opponent has... Okay, they have the same effect here. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon it without tributing. You can reveal this card and one other level 5 monster in your hand, special summon both, but they cannot be used as a material for the XYZ summon of a light monster. Okay, that's a very specific restriction. That's a very specific restriction. During your main phase, you can add one non-aqua Canine monster from your deck to your hand. I mean, okay, that is, once again, not much to say here other than that is a very, very good card, because it can be a great normal summon. It can function as an extender that also special summons another monster from your hand, and it's a once per turn add from deck to hand. That is obviously a very, very good card. And I'm hoping that the restriction of not being able to, like, only being able to not use it for a light monster, I guess will make sense later. And then we have 66B Lantern, which is a Dark Pyro. You can only use the second... Wait, Dark Pyro... Does Dark Pyro have any synergies with, like, any of the Ashen spells? Can this be added by any of them? Like, Bonfire cannot add it, but... I thought there was an Ashen card that said, like, send a Dark Pyro or whatever. Chaotic Elements? Okay. Chaotic Elements. Let me look that up real quick. Chaotic Elements was the add a level 5 or higher light or dark pyro or aqua from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then okay, yeah, so this, you could play more copies of this if you wanted to. okay, let's find out if it's worth playing more copies of this. If your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, you can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is in your hand, you can target a non-pyro level 5 canine monster in your graveyard, special summon it and this card, but they cannot be used as material for the XYZ Summon of a light monster. During your main phase, you can add a canine spell trap from your deck to your hand. Okay, similar to this one is also very good. Because once again, it's not, this second effect is obviously not something you can start the game with because you won't have anything in your graveyard yet. But the thing about this card is you don't have to necessarily start your combos by using the second effect of it. You can just start by normal summoning it, and I assume they have some good spell traps to add. So this can just be your normal summon if you open with it. But then it still is a phenomenal extender later on because it's like a reborn and special summon. So that's very good, I think. Of course, depending on the quality of spell traps they have. Then we have K9. I don't even know what this means. I mean, I know what it means in math terms, but like, I don't know how to say it in English. And then we got Lupus. Level 5 Earth Beast Warrior. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. In Japanese, they just say 0. Okay, so null, essentially. Okay. During the main phase, if your opponent activated a monster effect in the hand or graveyard this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. During your opponent's turn, you can, quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, XYZ Summon using this card you control. An XYZ monster that has this card as material gains this effect. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. You know, this is funny because like they've put this sort of effect like during the main phase. If your opponent activate a monster effect in hand or graveyard this turn, you can special summon this card. They have this on multiple of their cards, right? That was the same condition as it was on Izuna earlier. Seems to be a little bit of a common theme with this deck, which would mean that sometimes you're just going to have a very, very good matchup against certain decks because they rely on effects in hand or graveyard, and then against other decks you won't be. But like that's pretty strong to be able to do this. Izuna is pseudo gamma. So Izuna, yeah, because Izuna sends this, right? And it summons itself from graveyard. You would be like your opponent activates a card effect in hand or grave. You go Izuna effect, special, send Lupus, and then bring out Lupus from the graveyard. And then you can quick effect XYZ Summon with the Lupus, which gives you, I suppose, a whole bunch of options for rank 5s. But it also gives you, you can make Typhon with this, right? Like on the opponent's turn, if they have, if they've summoned from the extra deck twice, a Typhon that can't be targeted either, which is sometimes can be annoying for certain decks. But okay, let's look at some of their in-house XYZ monsters, some of their own stuff. We got K9 number 17 Ripper, rank 5 Wind Beast Warrior, which requires 2 level 5s. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn each. You can detach a material from this card, add a K9 card from your deck to your hand. Then, if your opponent activates a monster effect this turn, you can set a K9 quick spell from your deck or graveyard. When your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand or graveyard, you can detach a material from this card, negate that effect. Okay, so that is right off the bat a solid rank 5 XYZ monster to make with Lupus, because it will not be able to be targeted, and it is a monster negate for most notably, it is a monster negate for something that activates in hand or graveyard, so not on the field. So not like it doesn't let you stop everything, but presumably against a deck that uses hand or graveyard effects, it is going to be very valuable. The additional thing here is that it becomes untargetable if you summon it with Lupus, and you're going to detach one material from it to negate an effect to get some value out of it. But then if it sticks around because they can't target it and they also can't attack it because it's their first turn, you're going to be able to start your turn with detach a material from this card and add a K9 card from your deck to your hand, which I think is pretty good way to start your turn with. So this is simultaneously, I think, pretty good. While I don't think this is like super crazy either. Like this is powerful, but not too powerful, if you know what I mean. Like I don't hate this in the way that, like, you know, like a Baron the Floor Omni Negate kind of thing. This is not that powerful because it is a little more specific than that. Because your opponent has to first play into the Izuna by activating a card in hand or graveyard. Then you have to make the rank 5, and then they still have to play into the rank 5. So they basically have to activate multiple hand or graveyard effects before you get value from this interruption, which makes it, I think, specific enough to not be super broken, but still pretty good. We've got K9 Null Hound, level 5 Light Beast Warrior. 2 level 5 monsters, cannot be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effects the turn it is special summoned. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect, this card gains 500 attack when the effect resolves. Once per turn during the standby phase, detach a material from this card, then target a card on the field, banish it. Okay, so this is just like trying to be a fancy towers monster, I think. It's not super powerful, I don't feel like, but it can potentially be annoying if you combine it with the targeting protection from Lupus, because ultimately what this means is if you turn your Izuna Lupus into a Hound, you have this turn cannot be destroyed by battle, card effects, or cannot be targeted. So, like, you will light. Wait, does this say non-light? No, this one can make a light monster, and this one too, right? Yeah. No, these you can make. With those you can make Hound. So there is going to be some decks where you just know that if you make this on your opponent's turn untargetable, they cannot out it, right? And then if they try to play into it, it is going to grow a decent amount. What I like about this, though, is that it's not like this forever, right? Like, this is not a towers forever, because this is only for the turn it's summoned. So it's not like a floodgate kind of effect where you just summon like this and it's the main goal of your deck, like a Noir kind of thing, right? Like, this is not as good as like X Purely Noir being unaffected for the rest of the game, basically. This is just during the turn it's special summoned. Is that the same with the targeting? No, the untargetable is forever, but the destruction by battle or card effect is not. Yeah, okay. Rank 9. Wait, rank 9? Okay, they must have rank up spells then, right? Because there was nothing here that even gets close to making a rank 9. Sure. Or they can just put themselves onto the other things. K9 EX Werewolf, rank 9 Light Beast Warrior exceeds effect monster. Materials, 2 level 9s, 3300 attack. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. While this card has material, it can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials attached to it. Ooh, that's not even on monsters. That's just attack like 2 times or more, depending on what you have under it. When your opponent activates a card or quick effect, you can detach a material from this card, then activate this effect based on whose turn it is. If it's your turn, you banish a card your opponent's controls and or 1 card from their graveyard. So that's like a Chengying kind of thingy. Non-targeting. Pretty good. Your opponent's turn. Look at your opponent's hand and banish a card from it face up until the end phase. Oh, God. Okay. Now, that's really powerful. Looking at your opponent's hand and banishing a card from it, even if it's only temporarily, is really, really good. That's essentially, you get the effect of a pointer of the Red Lotus, which is banned for good reason. And then it, on your own turn, even has a removal effect, is 3300 and can attack multiple times. This is very, very strong. But there's a few things here. First of all, it does not have an effect to just put itself onto other stuff. So we need to see how you rank up into this in a second. But I really like that they gave this effect of looking at the opponent's hand only during the opponent's turn, because being able to do that on your own turn would be completely absurd. So I like that if you're going first, this card essentially doesn't do anything because you don't have a battle phase and you're not able to banish anything from your opponent yet. So like this card essentially does not make your first turn any more broken or anything like that. Of course, you're still trying to set this up for when it's your opponent's turn, but like it's not gonna, you know, like it's at least that is a thing. Like if this just had this effect on both turns, it'd be completely broken because you would just make it and it would protect your other combos from like being interacted with, because then you would just look at their hand and, you know, but yeah, okay. Let's find out how you summon the rank 9, because I think some of the spell cards will probably do that. K9 LC Liberation, quick play spell card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Target a K9 Xyz monster or a rank 5 Xyz monster you control. There you go. Special summon a K9 Xyz with a different name from your extra deck by using that monster you control as material. This is treated as an Xyz summon. Transfer its materials to the summoned monster. At the end of the battle phase, if your K9 monster battled this turn, you can set this card from your graveyard. Oh, okay. So we've got a little reset gimmick here. Now, this is the type of card that you're probably going to play in this deck, but it is not going to feel good to draw it, because it's like on its own, this does absolutely nothing, negative impact on the game, right? Like normally we would look at those kind of cards like, oh, this card only becomes playable at the point where you can already make an Xyz monster. Like we would not like to play those kind of cards normally, right? So of course, the monster you summon with it is pretty powerful. And we did see that there was multiple ways to access this card, right? We have a spell trap searcher here that will get it for free. We can also theoretically send it from the deck to the graveyard with Izuna and then reset it at some point. So like there's multiple ways to access a card like this. So there's a possibility you still want to play like one copy of it. I don't see the deck ever running more than one copy. Because it just absolutely does nothing in terms of like getting your game plan started. We have K9X Forced Liberation. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. During the main phase, target a K9 Xyz monster you control. Special summon a K9 Xyz with a different name from your extra deck by using that monster as material. Then you can destroy a card your opponent controls. At the end of the battle phase, if your K9 battled, you can set this card from your grave. Okay, so wait, that's the same as the one above, but the difference is this one also pops a card, but this one can also use generic rank 5s. Right? So like oh, this is main phase only. This one was not main phase only. Oh, okay. So this one you can activate at any point and you can use any rank 5. This one is a little bit more specific in its timing, and it's more specific in terms of what you can rank up, but you get a pop on top of it. That in a dedicated K9 deck, I feel like this is worth it. I feel like it's worth taking the more specific route, but then you get a pop on top of it. Like, that seems pretty neat because that's an actual disruption. That's a very good sequencing, right? Like, let's say you summon a rank 5 K9 on your first turn. Let's say you summon Ripper because you want to use its effect to detach and add a K9 card from your deck. Then you set the spell. On your opponent's turn, you wait and see if they activate any effect in hand or graveyard. You negate it with Ripper. Then they put a card onto the field you want to destroy. You activate Forced Liberation. You rank up the Ripper into the EX Werewolf. You get a pop. And then after that, if they keep playing, you get to look at their hand and banish a card until the end phase. Like, that's a pretty solid sequence of things, right? I don't know if you would ever play both of those, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, at least for now, I don't think you're going to be playing multiples of these. I feel like you would play one, whichever one you think is better, and just call it a day. Maybe one each. Maybe one each. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And then we have K9 EW Ooh, experimental liberation. Normal trap card. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Special summon a canine monster from your hand or grave. Then you can special a canine exceed from your extra deck by using the first monster as material, but destroy the second monster during the end phase of the next turn. During the end phase, you can banish this card from your grave, then target a canine quick play spell in your grave, set it. This, I like. This seems decent. This seems like a decent one-off, I think, because it lets you summon an exceed out of nowhere. And it gives you some follow-up. Like, it is a trap card, so it will suffer from trap card problems, but this seems like a solid one-off to me, for sure. Because it gives you just another... It gives you another Xyz. How does Lupus work? Yeah, okay, you can even... As long as you have Lupus in the graveyard, you can just use this card at any point to essentially summon an untargetable Xyz as well, because you're gonna have Lupus as material, which is pretty neat. So I think that's neat. The spell traps here, I think, have one weakness, which is that nothing here gets you started. Nothing here is like a Rhoda or anything. You know, this is just like your gimmick on how you can summon the EX Werewolf, right? Like that's all these spell traps are about. Like, how are you going to get this rank 9 onto the field? Which is not, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it does mean that, like, this effect, right? This effect is just so much worse because of it, right? Like, I thought Lantern was a phenomenal card when I first read it, because I was like, okay, this can be an extender, or I can just normal summon it and get going with that. But normal summoning this with this selection of spell traps just basically doesn't do anything, right? So that's a little weird for now. But if they ever add like a single, like if they add a Rhoda to this archetype, like it's popping off with Lantern and stuff like that, right? Scroll further. No, it's done. The other stuff is reprints. This is all reprints. Nothing here matters anymore. Okay. Now, still, I will say, I think for a first wave of support, this is pretty neat. And I kind of like the concept here. I think the concept's pretty cool for an Xyz based strategy, right? Like I kind of think it's decent. I think Justice Hunters is overall looking pretty fun. Chaotic Elements is a searcher, yeah, but like nothing you can search. I said this effect is not great because you can't add a consistency card with it. Please read number 67. Oh, is that the one that got so expensive? Hold up. Number 67 Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh yeah, that did spike in price a little bit. I did see that on my timeline. Number 67 Paradise Smasher. Rank 5. 2+ level 5 monsters. It is a light monster, most notably, which sometimes you're locked out of. Once per turn during your main phase 1, you can detach 2 materials from this card. Each player rolls a 6-sided die twice. The player with the higher total cannot activate monster effects or declare an attack until the end of the next turn. Once per turn, if either player rolls a 6-sided die or dice while this card has material, you can treat one of the results as 7. So what you're telling me, you make it with 3 materials, you detach 2 so that you have a material left, and then you're trying to turn skip your opponent? How does this work? If on its own effect, does it treat the combined total of the dice at 7 for my opponent, or can you treat one of the 2 dice as 7? You modify 1 dice to 7, and when do you have to do that? Like, will you see all of the results and then be able to change one, or do you roll 1 at a time and immediately you have to decide after all of the rolls, okay, statistically, you got to be incredibly likely to turn skip your opponent, though, right? Like, if you can look at all of the rolls and then change their lowest roll to a 7, you gotta have an incredibly high 96%. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. I mean, yeah. On the other hand, I don't think it's that much about like, do you win if this card hits the field, or like if this card resolves, but rather like, is it good to summon this with 3 monsters and then just get impermed on it or veilered or whatever? Because then you've put 3 monsters into that and that's it. And it is untargetable. Does that? I guess it cannot be targeted if you make it with Lupus, yeah. Yeah, okay. If you make it with Lupus, you still if you get Ghost Ogred on it, you still have to hope to basically win the 50-50, right? Because then you can't change the dice. But it's definitely toxic. I don't know if it's going to be the preferred way to play this deck. The other thing is, like, you guys are saying like, oh, 96%, which I haven't double checked. I have not double checked whether it's actually 96%, but it sounds about right. Like, if you can change one of their dice to 7, it seems incredibly likely they will have the higher result. But like, even if 96% is true, that is still like 1 out of 20 games. 1 out of 20 games you summon this card, you will just destroy yourself, right? Which is like on the wait, no, not 1 in 20, 1 in 25. 1 in 20 would be 5%. 1 in 25 games, which is like, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot, but if you're playing a long tournament, it is going to happen, right? But it's still pretty scary to go up against, I think. Yeah. Okay. All right, K9 looking all right overall. Looking all right. I'll give it, for the first wave, I'll give it like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, maybe.